Hi, welcome to Monday Musings with Amanda. This week we are going to discuss and explore this concept called boundaries. Before I get there though, cards for the week. I pulled from the Crazy Sexy Love Notes from the universe. And I thought I was pulling one card and it actually came out as two. So that means both matter this week. So the first one is be gentle with yourself. I love today is the day after Mother's Day, so I'm curious if there are any mamas out there. How do you need to be gentle with yourself today or in the coming week? It says, take your foot off the gas and don't push yourself so hard. If you need to rest, then take a break. The world won't fall apart if you nap. Renew, dear one. You are a treasure. Be gentle with yourself. The second one, something bigger is on the way. I'm thinking this might be backwards. I'm sorry. Allow your vision to expand and be open to the form it takes. You may discover that you were dreaming too small or that what seemed like an obstacle is actually pointing you in a better direction. The universe always has your back. I know this really hits with me right now in these times in my business right now. So, all right, so let's talk about this concept of boundaries. I'm still very much growing in this process. And I know that they are absolutely critical to healthy self, healthy relationships, healthy emotions, just healthy life in general. I found myself about 10 years ago, I believe it was a counselor, asked me, we were talking about some situation that had happened, and she said, well, what are your boundaries? And I literally looked at her like a deer in headlights going, I don't even know what a boundary is. I don't even know how to answer that question, because I had grown up largely, until my early 30s, I think that's when it was, just not having any boundaries. I never learned what the term was. It just never came across. And so when I was asked that, it was this, I don't know. And so if that rings true for some of you, let's start with just a basic definition. I kind of think of boundaries as being a fence with a gate that you can choose to open or keep closed for certain people on certain occasions. But really it's this safe container. And we have, physical boundaries, like maybe I'm not in a mood to be touched. Like, I don't want to be hugged right now. I just need my space. That is a boundary. And I think it's really important to teach our kids using the terminology boundaries and really helping them get this self-awareness of, you're in charge of your body and you get to decide, I don't want to be hugged right now. And that needs to be okay, because that's their boundary. And being able to communicate that and respect that is crucial. We also have boundaries, emotional, mental, time. Some people have very strict time boundaries, like you need to be on time, while others, that's not necessarily a boundary. There's so many different areas, but really what it is what is okay and what isn't okay in my space, if that makes sense. And it's crucial to have this self-awareness and be able to check in with yourself. And when I was starting to learn, and I'm still catching myself, and it's a daily process, but thinking about the self-awareness of where am I feeling resentment in an interaction or in a relationship, chances are one of your boundaries has been crossed. More than likely unintentionally, because I would say, don't often clearly communicate our boundaries, so people don't know. Okay, so starting with that self-awareness, where am I feeling resentment or just upset feelings in a relationship? Is there something, is it a physical, is it an emotional, a mental, a time? Is there a boundary that has been crossed? The second step is clearly, explicitly communicating it. Hey, I was feeling this. A boundary has been crossed, and you can explain what it is, and this is what I would like to see different. You know, how often are we not aware? Are we so busy in life that we just go through, we get that resentment, we get that anger and shove it down or set it aside and then go forward? You know, as a recovering people pleaser, we're going to get into the third step, and that is being okay with being vulnerable, to speak about it clearly and concisely, and then being willing to have a difficult conversation. Because sometimes if we have that conversation, it can feel like there's some conflict. It just doesn't feel good. It's not comfortable. But in order to have clear, concise, communicated boundaries, we need to get more comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations. On the other side of that is this, you know, people that have clear boundaries, others respect them, and they have a trust in being completely themselves and knowing that, oh, if I do something that's against, or crossing a boundary, they're going to let me know. And there's a lot of ease in that space. So while it may not initially be easy to identify, communicate, on the other side of that, I can guarantee your relationships are going to be so much more healthy, satisfying, and happy. So where does this come in with our kids? I've been very intentional about speaking explicitly about boundaries. If two of my boys get in an argument, I'll point out and say, hey, I think maybe when you did this, you crossed his boundary. Or he said no, that is a boundary, and you did not respect that. And so I'm giving them the language and the examples of what it feels like and tools to kind of express those emotions. It's still a work in progress. I had this beautiful experience of my 9-year-old this weekend. He was really upset, and he was saying his older brother, he's like, he doesn't respect my boundaries, and I respect his boundaries. Obviously, it takes two people to be respectful of boundaries, and we cannot, control whether or not another person respects our boundaries. But, so it's very much a process, and I have a feeling there's some sibling stuff going on in there, obviously. But it's a start, and it's great to be able to see children be able to, talk about their boundaries, be aware when they're upset, and communicate in that way. So that is the greatest thing that we can do to, create boundaries and respect boundaries. Self-awareness, clear, concise communication, explicitly talking about it and naming it, and then being able to be comfortable with being vulnerable for that conversation and having that difficult conversation. So those are just my Monday musings on boundaries. Thanks for checking in, and I would love, if you put in some comments how this lands for you, how boundaries show up in your life, how you interact, and let's have a conversation. Thanks.